All right, we are live on Facebook on Life
Hello.
Unrehearsed. Hello. We have Zoe and Tim going to be talking about the transition from fun-loving couple to having a child.
Fun-loving parents.
Yes. Okay. Well, we're going to be on in about a minute.
Photos to your story at cjad.com.
Enjoy the show.
From the Dormitory Weather Center, rain or drizzle ending this evening, then mainly cloudy. The temperature steady around 2. Tomorrow, rain beginning again early in the afternoon. Temperature steady near 3. Snow, high of 1 for Tuesday. The temperature right now in Montreal is 2 degrees.
Or if someone is not comfortable.
I'm Luciano. Keep you out. Next update at 4:30. Breaking news as it happens. News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
All right, here we go.
On CJAD 800.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed, a show about the ins and outs of family life. So your life isn't going exactly as planned? Well, you're not alone, and we're here to help out. My name is Matt Del Vecchio, specializing in free retirement home search and senior transition support.
And I'm Corey Sirota, clinical social worker and psychotherapist specializing in grief and loss.
Coming right up on the first half of today's show. Well, Corey, you and I have been through this. That transition from having the fun, free-living couple lifestyle to having children. Well, we love our kids, but those first few years could be challenging. Well, we have an in-studio, wonderful young couple with us that are in the middle of this experience with their 2.5-year-old Toby. You won't want to miss what they have to say. And grandparents, if you're listening, I think you're also going to hear what they have to say. Corey, I have to say to you that you do not stop. You are just coming from a very impressive, I have to say, workshop, didn't you, at the Rideau funeral?
So we talked about it last week. We did a free support group for families who were grieving, and an impressive 17 children showed up today at that workshop as I ran from here to there, etc., etc. But we're so grateful to the Rideau Funeral Home for allowing us the space and the time to help families honor the person who died.
Wonderful cause for this, and lots of parents showed up too as well. Switching gears a little bit, we're seeing U.S. Thanksgiving, of course, and all the Black Friday sales, and it's holiday season and shopping season. I wanted to get your opinion on it, but from my perspective, patience in the shopping center does not exist.
No, it
in
does
traffic,
not.
it does not exist. So I am slowly converting over to those that are buying online. A little risky when you have to buy clothes and so on. However, this is just new to me. My brother lives in Atlanta. Corey, that's all they do.
For sure.
Everything
it's
is
much
bought
more
online.
Convenient. It's much more convenient. I had to laugh on Facebook. Somebody put, I stayed home all day on Black Friday and I saved 100%.
Very smart.
Very telling.
Unless they bought a whole bunch online.
Yes, right.
So what do we have going on in the second half?
Well, the second half we are going to talk about a very challenging topic, which is navigating the healthcare system. We know that for many it's very frustrating and confusing, especially when you have someone like a loved one that is desperate and in desperate need of help. So we're here to try and make your lives a little easier, and that's why we have Jessica Smith from the YWCA, who's coming to provide us with some guidance and helpful hints about navigating the healthcare system. That's after the news.
Jessica will be our savior. It can be a very challenging time for families looking for some help, and we're looking forward to that on the second half. All right, let's get right into this. As mentioned, many of us listening have already had that experience of transitioning from that fun-loving couple, trying to climb the corporate ladder, doing your jobs, especially after that first year when you both have to go in the workforce, if that's what you've decided to do. And I have to say the joy of having children, but also the challenge of having children. And we figured it'd be a great idea to have a young couple that are in the thick of it. And when we're talking diapers, that's exactly what we need, don't we? So I'd love to welcome Zoe and Tim to Life Unrehearsed. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having us today.
All right, so just to set this up, I'm very interested in hearing from you, because as the generations change, bringing up children also changes very much so. So let's get a little bit of a background. How old are both of you?
36.
36. You're both the same age.
Last
Tim,
time
that
I
was a
checked,
trick.
yes.
That's a trick question, Tim.
Yeah.
Yeah, you agree with that one?
I
Yeah.
waited for her on that one. I'm in the clear.
All right, both 36, and you have a beautiful boy, 2.5 years old.
Yes.
Toby is his
Toby.
name. All right.
Super Toby.
Super Toby, and we're going to talk about the fact that he's not here, and you both have smiles on your faces.
Yeah. They're looking a little too happy there, Matt. I don't know. I think they thought it was a date.
Date
This
night at
close to
CJD,
together.
the Dr. Lori Petito show.
Yeah.
So let's back it up. How long were you actually together?
So we've been together for 11 years, and we've been, so 11 years together, and then we had Toby 2.5 years ago. Do the math on that one.
There we go. Get my calculator.
So and then when you have your son, beautiful. Everybody is it's a first child, correct?
First child, first grandchild on both sides.
So that's very special. So what was the deal? What was the agreement between the two of you when you after delivering Toby?
What do you mean? what was the-
Who stopped working?
Oh, right.
No formal agreement.
No
There was
formal
nothing written. I took 6 weeks off for paternity leave right after Toby was born, and Zoe got a little longer than I did.
Well, I went off on preventative mat leave because of the nature of my work. And then I was off for 1.5 years after Toby was born. Almost 1.5 years. So I had a good run.
You know, and it's interesting being in Canada, where our laws really do protect, and for good reason. Again, I go back to my brother in Atlanta, and moms are going back to work 2 weeks, 3 weeks after, and so we are very, very fortunate. Quite the dynamic change. We talked about generations and so on. Back in the old days, it was automatically assumed the husband would go back to work. Mom was either housewife and stayed as housewife, but now it's much, much different. So you, at least, Tim, you were able to get 6 weeks off. Let's go back to more of the day-to-day activities. Again, if mom is no longer a housewife and mom is working, those chores and responsibilities of the day-to-day running of a house, how did you figure all that out? Or is it still a work in progress?
It's still a work in progress, definitely, because as
One day at a time.
Yeah, one day at a time. But initially, we got a lot of help from my parents just when it came to cleaning the house, just keeping things tidy. I think you also need to kind of redefine what a tidy house is
good
and
point.
accept that you're not going to have a Pinterest house anymore. You did a lot of grocery shopping at first. I don't remember being in a grocery store.
Yeah, it's a bit of a blur. We were discussing that on the way here, who was kind of handling more of the chores in terms of groceries and all that. I don't remember, but I think it was probably a little more me on
I think
that
you
end.
were doing more of the
Yeah.
food-related stuff.
Well, Tim, you get to pick the stuff you want now. That's a
I know,
that's
I
a
had
good
a
deal.
list.
Besides
No,
the
I
diapers,
had
of course.
I had a full-on list to follow. So it was,
Online shopping, we were just
Right,
talking,
yeah.
becomes a huge help.
Okay.
So that's, I don't know, I guess that's one big difference from our parents' generation, is that, you need diapers a click away and it shows up at your door. So that was a big help.
Even in terms of groceries too, we transitioned to doing groceries online when Toby was about a year old. When he went back to work, we started doing them online.
Yeah.
That was a huge help. So he was delivered right to the door. And
So if I were to ask you, what would each of you say is the biggest transition?
Like to becoming to having a newborn in your life. Do you want to answer first? And I'll go.
I guess from my perspective, I mean, it was just Zoe and I for so many years, 9 years, just Zoe and I. We could, go out whenever we wanted. We hung out a lot together. So, just a Friday night, we can go out, as late as we want, sleep in as long as we want. And now with Toby, I'm stuck hanging out with my friends instead.
In our living room.
All right.
For me, it was interesting because despite having my parents around on a daily basis, despite, I guess my big transition was when Tim went back to work after his paternity leave. And he was there every evening. My parents were there almost every day. I signed up for all these mommy and baby activities and groups, and despite all that, it could still feel very isolating. And that was a huge transition. When you're going from, being at work full time and having, a thriving social life, that's a big one.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more about those transitions and those challenges. It's approaching 4:15, and we're going to get a bit of a traffic update. But when we come back, we're going there. We want to hear what you've been doing to at least try to maintain some intimacy together. But first, let's head up to the CJD Traffic Center with Lauren Glazer.
We are dealing with a problem on the westbound 30 accident
Zoom.
at the
Okay.
Flies
Yeah,
by.
fly by. So if you want to include stuff about grandparents, do you want to ask about the advice overload?
We'll get there. So
Yeah.
first, I'm going to come back from the traffic update. I'm going to say we asked you that spill, and you'll tell us of that. The sleep deprivation I thought was a good one, but and then we can also, Matt, you'll go into the advice overload and then go with grandparents.
Well, you've got the intimacy question.
Yeah.
Then I'll come with the second question, which would be sleep deprivation, which then
So then I would go into the advice overload. Okay.
We can only get up to 60% off vacation packages.
different parenting styles.
Yeah.
We're going to have time. The first part is much quicker.
Okay.
So we've got about
You're
7,
gonna ask
8, 9 minutes.
that, and then I'm going to ask about parenting styles, and then you're going to ask about
The advice overload.
advice and go into
with a focus on
grandparents.
grandparenting.
Okay.
Question period. When you're looking for answers and informed political discussion, look to Question Period with Evan.
There you go. We know where we're going.
News Talk Radio, CJAD.
I should have turned that down. Sorry, on Facebook, you probably heard that speaker instead of us talking away. Just want to make sure. Sometimes this lake falls down.
The teaser question. The one about our sex life.
The one about your sex life.
Or lack thereof.
Facebook Live.
Yeah.
There you got it, folks.
There you
But
go.
you know what?
You heard it live.
If you're comfortable with it, it's
Yeah.
and you know what? Every single couple is thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the perfect.
Actually, I have a good. You know me. I'm saving it for when I come back.
The pure anxiety. What was is that
I don't remember.
number 9?
Yeah,
pure
you asked.
anxiety.
It was just a statement. It was said pure
I don't
anxiety.
know why. I guess about
More of a
new
comment.
parenting.
I mean,
That's
I
we
put a
don't-
response to it.
Yeah. We'll
but-
see if we need to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get. We're going to have some time. So
Okay.
again, at around 4:20, we're going to wrap it up at around 4:26ish.
Okay.
4:26 and a half.
Okay.
The thank yous, the support group, and the two of you could banter a little bit, right, Corey?
Yeah.
About the support group.
Yeah. Does the YWCA do anything for new moms?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, we have a lot of family and parenting
Okay,
programs.
so
We have
So we could give a plug.
Yeah.
There as well.
yeah, I'd have to double check exactly what it is, but there's different things at different times as well. So
Well, so there's just lots of services out there if you want that. I want to just make sure that people, if you need the support, know that there's places that you can reach out.
So now we're coming back in.
About 4:20,
Okay.
4:21. They're doing sign language, Corey. We're doing.
No, we're doing like on the movies.
Oh.
Oh, is that what it is?
When they're like 5. Oh wait, I did 4.
Oh.
Ah! See, I have a 2.5-year-old.
Yeah.
I
Messing up your
can't
mind.
anymore. It's the end of the day.
5.
So you won't be able to hear the music. We have a music interval. Did you tell them which one it is? It's
I didn't.
Child of Mine.
Child of Mine, which is a beautiful song, Carol King's
Carole
song.
King.
Oh, I thought the Guns N' Roses
I
version.
almost
I was
went-
like, hey, that's your song.
I almost picked it. I almost
Oh,
picked
did
it.
you?
Yeah, it was between this one and that one. I forgot.
I was cracking. Last week we did adoption, and I was laughing because I find this fun. I was picking songs from Annie. I was like, which one? I need more songs.
Crazy twisted sense of humor. That's why I like her.
But there was lots of laughing on that one. The smiles.
Yeah.
It's all very good.
Yeah. And for me, all of this is about people recognizing that there's some support, what they're going through is
Yeah.
normal challenges, and it's always about how do you navigate. So here's
Yeah.
some resources, here's some support, here's some idea, or just identify that you're not saying, oh, it's perfect, it's exhausting and it's tough, and it's important that we talk about it.
Here we go.
Okay.
You're coming in.
Yeah. Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corey Sirota with my co-host Matt Del Vecchio. We are talking with Zoe and Tim about how life changes when you transition from being a couple to becoming parents. And I know that I've heard expressions like becoming a parent is like the army. You do more before 6 a.m. than most people do in a day, right?
Yeah.
So we asked, and we want to know the dirt on this one. And you guys have been good sports about knowing we were going to ask this question. There's no doubt in my mind that intimacy changes when you have a newborn. For some, it gets thrown completely out the window. For others, they find and can find and should find the time to be able to create those moments. So let's hear about how it is for you guys.
I'll take this one. I mean, for me, but I know this will resonate with a lot of women, your body takes a beating. It really does. It doesn't matter how the child comes into the world, your body takes a beating, and recovery isn't always easy. Maybe easier for some than others, but it's a long road. You're beyond sleep deprived, like never before, so that definitely does not help. And for me, I chose to exclusively breastfeed Toby. So my body literally became a source of life for Toby. Now to go from that to being a source of sexual desire, it's a very tough switch to turn on and off. So it's tough. It really is. It's tough to maintain that. And in all honesty, those first few months, you're so on like mommy mode, and like I said, your body's just
Sure.
sustain life. So to then be and feel sexy, ooh, aye.
Well, you are hotter as a mom, I'll say that.
Oh,
Good move, Tim.
Thank you.
But I think you're bringing up an excellent point, because I think there's your own male perspective and female perspective. But in listening to you, from a guy's perspective, Tim, how are you dealing with that?
I mean, it's an adjustment. You just, all of what Zoe laid out there, you just kind of have to respect it and take it for what it is. You adjust as a couple, and it's kind of it.
I had a friend who their gynecologist, after their 6-week checkup post delivery, said, okay, you're available, you're available. You can, if you want to start to become intimate, maybe another 2 weeks. But if you want, you can tell your husband 6.
That's pretty good.
Go for 8 if you have to. We're talking to Zoe and Tim, who are actually, yes, Corey, you summed it up right. Good sports, telling us about how their life changes when transitioning from being a couple to becoming parents. We have a lot of grandparents listening too that are nodding. We're going to talk about grandparents in a second, but Zoe, you brought up a point on sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
I think that's such a crucial point. I know that was one of the things that I particularly struggled with, because I was at an age where you're in the corporate world, and you've got to be at the office, and you've got meetings, and you're worried about that, and unlimited hours of sleep, and there's the guilt from the spouse as well. How are you coping with, because you're in the middle of it right now, right? How are you coping with sleep deprivation?
At first, I don't remember. Was that sleep deprived?
Yeah.
Tim mentioned it before. It's a blur. It really is. But I think in retrospect, you kind of realize you plowed through it. It's tough. And I think you need to learn to set boundaries with people. People are going to want to come visit or want to come spend time, but you need to be able to say, sorry guys, the baby's sleeping. I just need to get some shut-eye here because otherwise you're not going to be able to function for that little creature.
Fair enough. I think that's very, very true. It's putting those boundaries and,
Yeah.
and recognizing that when the baby sleeps, you sleep. Otherwise, you're not going to catch up. I know that you were raised one way. I imagine Tim was raised another way. How parenting styles, do they differ? Or have you noticed if they differ? And if so, how so?
Go ahead. They do.
They do. They definitely do differ. My experience has just been you have to kind of pick your battles. There's certain aspects of parenting that I'm very
Adamant.
adamant about, right? And there's other areas where I can kind of be a little more relaxed on. So I find myself really thinking about our two different parenting styles, and before we get into any kind of argument about anything, just kind of stepping back and really thinking about it and picking those battles.
That's great.
That's Zoe and Tim talking about their transition from nice couple, and they're still a nice couple, even with a kid. But obviously challenging, and we're running out of time, but we do want to talk about grandparents. I think you brought up some very, very good points, and even boundaries come into play.
Yeah.
Everyone has different parenting styles. Grandparents have different parenting styles
Yes.
than parents. So what would you recommend to grandparents listening today?
I mean, it comes from a place of love. Anything they bring into the house, any advice. But at the same time, as parents, you need to realize that you're still the parent of that child. So you gotta, take what helps, leave what doesn't. And you gotta set boundaries. Like I said, at the same time, it comes from a place of love. And when grandparents are part of that child's life, I think ultimately that's what matters the most. And it's just an opportunity to take.
Excellent words of advice. I know in my case, the grandparents were just outstanding until this day. 20 and 18 years old, still very much involved, and very respectful of parental decisions as well. Zoe and Tim, thank you so much for coming on the air, spilling your guts out, but I know there are a lot of listeners thanking you as well. Very, very interesting. And, I think you were involved with some support groups. Can you give some support group? Even Corey, you're involved in one?
So I know that the West Island Women's Center, for example, offers a free support group, New Mom and Baby Support. It's free daycare, the first Tuesday of every month, 11 Rodney, Point Claire. Please check that out. I think the YWCA has some support services. There's lots out there. You do not have to be alone. Please make sure to reach out if you feel that you're isolated and alone. And thank you guys again for your time and your honesty and your sense of humor.
Thank you.
And we really appreciate it. I'll just let you know, quickly coming up on the second half of our show, navigating the healthcare system. It can be frustrating and challenging. Do not give up hope. We have an expert in the studio that will be providing helpful tips and advice about how to better navigate our system.
Ta-da! Excellent. Way to go.
That does really go like that.
It does. Little close up for Facebook. Thank you so much. You guys were amazing. Way to go. All right.
Thank you.